Welcome back. In this video, we're going to see how we can override a function that was defined in a class that we inherit from. So secondary is inheriting from base class. Now let's assume we have another function inside of base class. So every offspring of the house base class has to have a role. So everyone needs to have a role. So we have this function called role. And here we're just going to say println member of the house of base class. Okay, so that will be the role. Now the role should be different, for example, for our secondary versus our tertiary. Okay, and our secondary, by the way, this is a derived class, and there's one R too many. Derived class of base class. And you could say inherits from base class. So now we have this role, this fun role. And what I want to do is I want to make sure that this is overridable by my inheriting classes. So I can open this function up. So now role will be an open function that I can now go ahead and override by using the override keyword. So override fun role, you can see I get it recommended straight away. And then I can say what should happen. Now we have this super keyword. The super keyword is basically just saying execute whatever the base class said should happen for my role. So let me just show you that that's actually the case. So here I'm going to have my additional details. So let's say secondary should be a knight of the house of base class. Now let's go into our start and let's get rid of this object base class function or object. And let's just do the object2 and assign the role or run the role function. Okay, let's rerun this and see what we're gonna get. So you'll see we get member of the house of base class and knight of the house of base class. So even though inside of our role function for our secondary class, we never explicitly stated this print line statement that says member of the house of base class, by having this line here, we actually did, because that's the code of what is inside of the base class's role function, which we are now overriding. So this function is open. This allows us to override it inside of an inheriting class. So our secondary is an inheriting class, which allows us to override the role function. Now, if we want to execute whatever the base class said should be executed for the base's role function, so basically whatever is the code inside of those curly brackets, we can call super.role. Is basically the parent that we call the role function of. So the parent in this case, the parent class is the base class. Now I can say, well, get rid of this line. I don't have to execute it. I can also not do it. And I can just say, okay, my role is only going to be knight of the house of base class, because while by default, if you are inheriting from base class, you will have the role of member of the house of base class. But if you improve yourself, if you want to get a special role, so to speak, for example, becoming a knight, then you have to override the function. So now let's go ahead and create another class, content file class and tertiary, like so. And now tertiary is going to also inherit from base class. So we need to add brackets here as well. Now let's go back to our start here and let's create a val. Object 1 is going to be or let's call it object 3 because it's tertiary. I don't even know how to pronounce it properly, but I guess you understand what I'm talking about from context. So let's run the role on secondary and on tertiary. Let's rerun this. And we will see we get the knight of the house of base class, which is our secondary, object 2. And we get member of the house of base class, so that's our object 3, because in tertiary, we didn't have any override or any implementation of our base class's role. So only once we actually have an override, we are going to modify what should be displayed once this function is called. So while we don't have a special role, let's say we're still a child inside of this house of base class, only once we get a role, let's say knight or archer or bard of the house or something like that, only then do we actually get to change our position inside of, or our role inside of the house of base class. So I'm going to print ln here saying bard of the house of base class. Okay, so now we have the member of the house of base class, we have the knight of the house of base class, and we have the bard of the house of base class. So now if you rerun this, instead of member, the tertiary object will be bard of the house of base class. So just said, when you call the role function and you have overridden it, run my overridden version. If you have not implemented the function, so if the function does not exist inside of this class with this override keyword, then run my base class's role function. Okay, so that is basically the... All right, and these are some of the core concepts of inheritance.